Let's talk about romance versus erotica. So you're probably wondering, what is the difference between romance and erotica, right? First off, you should know that for the most part, both of these, and especially romance, focus on interactions between two individuals, right? And in erotica, usually the romance is more physical, and in romance, it's more emotional. But most of these, whether it's romance or erotica, should always be ending with a happily ever after, or happy for now. That's where you sometimes see people write HEA or HFN. Usually a romance focuses on a single couple or core couple or several power couples. Especially in a series, you tend to bounce between the different couples, and it's going to have varying heats in romance, usually rated between 1 being mildest and 5 being super spicy. And we'll get into details exactly how spicy we talking. But if you want higher heat levels or guaranteed very physical spicy scenes, you go to erotica, right? Romance sometimes features sexual content. Erotica always has sexual content, and it's very descriptive and very detailed. And a lot of erotica is going to explore kinks, fetishes, sexualities, but they have similar subgenres, right? You have romance fantasy, you have erotica fantasy. There is even something called erotica, which is horror erotica. So if you like body horror, all I can think about is the movie Species. That would be dipping your toes in this. And the vocabulary, like the word choice and the descriptions, become very explicit the higher the heat level, and if you're in erotica. So there's a good over-encompassing division between romance and erotica. So let's go down the numbers, the list, the levels. 1, we're talking sweet, wholesome, YA. Oh, they're holding hands, they're flirting, and at last they kiss. Camera can't follow them through any of the doors. Okay. 2, we had 2 chili peppers, 2 flames, 2 spiciness, edgy, second base. Again, usually you see this in YA. Oh, she's making out with her crush and they're dating now. But, all the camera mostly can do might see through an open door before the lights go out. But you're not seeing much of things. Second base usually rarely ever involves anything involving an actual sex scene, not necessarily. So 1 and 2, there may not even have sex in these books. So keep that in mind. But 3, we're getting hanky-spanky. At some point, it's going to have some spice to it. It's going to be tangier, but it's going to be a little bit more reserved. Careful vocabulary choice. Very selective. You might get 1 or 2 scenes most per book in a series. They're definitely heading third base and beyond. They're going to be making out. They're going to be talking about sex, touchy-feely. Things are happening. Camera is following them into the bed. Clothes are coming off, and dang it, the lights are out. Now we're venturing into the very spicy stuff. 4 and 5 are going to be your top peaks for romance, and 6 I put in here to express erotica. I'm sure you guys are already laughing at some of what you're saying, but let's talk about spice level 4. We have heavy petting. We are in the bedroom, and this might have a little bit more explicit words that are being used. We're actually using the words for the private area, not beating around the bush, so to speak. No pun intended. So, they're going to do this. I see bras, I see panties. Things are thrown to the floor. Hands are in probably some pretty promiscuous, compromised places, but you can still experience lights out. The camera can't zoom in if the lights are on, so we're kind of like standing by the door still. if we're using the bedroom analogy here. 5 is the top heat level, and it can dip its toes in erotica. This is where a lot of your dark fantasies, dark romance, and mafia romance tends to go into level 5 more often. You are getting multiple sex scenes that don't necessarily involve the final love interest in these. Sometimes multiple partners, things like that. More modern romance is 4 and 5. So it's getting hot in here. So the camera is in the room and they're naked and talking dirty. They're very explicit words, even words like, as you see there, and wow, and no one's holding back. Some light indication of kinks and fetishes sometimes make their way on into the mix here. That is some of the aspects that you're going to get with 5. Romance erotica and erotica romance are 2 different flavors. Just like we see that there's a fantasy romance and a romance fantasy. So you're probably wondering, well, Val, what's the difference? Romance erotica focus on a plot and story beats of a classic romance, but you're going to get sex scenes on the level of erotica. Erotica romance is about the physical connection, but we're going to subplot in a hint of a romance plot line or expected story beats. So it depends which one you want served to you first. What main course do you want? Do you want meat or vegetables? Do you want lasagna or a regular pasta dish, a salad? Who knows? But that's sort of the difference, right? Now, 6, straight up erotica. Now, erotica itself comes with different heat levels, and I recommend exploring a variety of erotica writers because we all write our sauciness in different ways, in different tones. Some of us are very narrative, others are dialogue heavy. Sometimes we mix it up, sometimes there's inner dialogue. You have to decide which experience you like. Some of us always include communication, build up in aftermath. Some of us just bang and move on. So definitely explore the different writers in this field, but know that this is where the camera is there, and we have a camera crew, a whole crew is, if I don't choke, we have a whole crew, and they're now asking for a light to move so they can see how things are going in and out of other things. There are toys, there's whips, there are things, more experienced things happening. BDSM, kink, and fetishes are usually prominent with us in some level, and I will have to say, I think we either go super silly on erotica side, or we try to be very truthful to whatever we're representing, because we don't want to belittle the lifestyle and communities that our books tend to expose all the time. So let's talk about the fact that erotica does address a lot of things that romance often misses. Erotica jumps to the hot bits far faster, but they usually, like I said a minute ago, focus on the buildup and the aftermath. It's not necessarily about the bang and leave, unless that's the sort of storyteller they are. But more often, you're going to see before and after care unfolding, especially when lifestyles start to come into play in BDSM and fetishes and kinks. You also will see that there's a lot more focus on orgasms and climaxes, and that it doesn't stop once one is hit, especially when you start throwing in shifters and vampires and demons and things that cryptids, Sasquatch, Chupacabra. They can keep going for a very long time. Enough said. Also, locations. Generally, I've noticed in most romances, the hookup is happening in solitude and mostly in the bedroom or within a home or house or safe place or hotel. But with erotica, all bets are off. They're banging on the front stoop, they're in the car, they're at the office, often public places is a whole theme. on top of cars, in the car, under the car, who knows. But we're not afraid to kind of move that location around more often in erotica than I really see in romance. But I want to remind you readers that there's no shame in reading romance, and there's no shame in reading erotica or a mixture of the two. Number one, romance. I'm sure you guys have already said it. 50 Shades Grey. Followed by Jane Austen. How different are those two romances? Come on. How does reading help? Well, 30 minutes of reading reduces negative feelings, blood pressure, and your heart rate kind of regulates. Almost as effective as yoga. We're doing yoga flipping pages, y'all. Here's interesting. Who's reading? 82% of romance readers are women and 18% are men. 59% of romance readers are married or living with a partner. Do not feel like you're doing something bad. There is something to this. And reading, especially plots that build up to really strong climaxes, often increase brain activity. So we're just exercising our minds. And relationships, absolutely. But there is my take on romance versus erotica and the different heat levels to expect. Enjoy.